All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to break down a pretty fascinating technical protocol about something called trust seals. We're going to look at this claim that a simple physical mark on a document can actually change its entire legal and commercial power. So, let's get right into it.
And this is really the core question of our whole explainer, isn't it? I mean, we see seals and stamps on official papers all the time, but according to the protocol we're digging into, they're way more than just a fancy decoration. They're supposedly a key that unlocks a completely different kind of authority. So how is this all claimed to work?
Okay, so before we go any further, we really need to get a handle on what a trust seal even is, at least in the context of this specific protocol. It's presented as a super critical piece of a much bigger legal and commercial puzzle.
Now, the crucial thing to grab here is that it's not just a symbol. The protocol calls it a mechanism, which means it's a functional tool. It's designed to do three very specific things: to prove authority, to establish jurisdiction, and to make the intention behind a document crystal clear.
You know, the protocol really hammers this point home. The seal has to be physical. It's spelled out pretty clearly. Without an actual physical impression on the paper, a document might just get ignored by certain commercial entities. The physical act of making the mark is apparently where the power comes from.
So to really get why this physical mark is considered so important, we have to wrap our heads around the protocol's main idea, this concept that there are two totally separate realms that a document can live in.
So on one side, you've got the public statutory realm. Think of this as the default world, the administrative system most of us deal with every day, governed by all the official laws and codes. But then, on the other side, the protocol talks about this private realm of honor and equity, which it says is all based on private agreements or covenants and operates under a whole different set of principles called maxims of equity.
And this is where the seal's main job comes in. It's supposed to act like a kind of jurisdictional passport. It's the bridge that lets a document cross over from that public statutory world into this private realm of equity. That physical mark is basically a declaration saying, hey, this document, it's playing by a different set of rules now.
Okay, so if the seal is a bridge, what kind of powers does it supposedly give you on the other side? This is where the protocol really gets into the nitty-gritty of the seal's claimed authority.
Now, the key term you gotta know here is foreign jurisdiction. In this context, it doesn't mean another country, like France or Japan. No, it's a status that's being claimed. It's meant to signify that the trust is operating on its own, outside the direct oversight of domestic statutory laws.
The protocol pretty much boils the seal's power down to three main claims. First, it's the proof of that foreign status we were just talking about. Second, it establishes the trust's legal standing to actually operate under its own private rules. And third, it's for the aversion of dishonor, which is a really technical way of saying it's there to stop public entities from just ignoring or flat out rejecting the document.
And the language the protocol uses here is, well, it's incredibly strong. It's not framed as a suggestion or a request. No, it claims the seal gives conclusive evidence of the trust's final say, making it really hard for anyone else to challenge it on its own terms.
All right, so we've covered the theory, the what and the why, but what about the how? Now we're going to get into the practical side of things, the actual steps for creating and using the seal correctly according to this protocol.
So making the seal itself is a very specific three-part process. First, you have to clearly identify the trust with its full name and the year it was created. Then you bring in a scriptural verse which is meant to ground the seal's authority in some kind of higher or foreign law. And finally, specific symbols or words are added to really drive home its, let's say, lawful mission.
And using it is just as precise. You don't just slap this thing on every piece of paper. It's only for the most important core documents. You have to use a physical tool, like a stamp or an embosser, and where you put it is critical, right next to the trustee's signature. This is to make it super clear that they're signing in their official role, not just as a regular person.
The source text uses this really powerful metaphor here. It says that physical dent in the paper isn't just for looks. It's considered a witness. It's meant to testify that the trust is doing its job with full authority. All of that meaning is packed into that one little mark.
So what's the end game here? What is the whole point of all this? This last section gets into the intended result, how the seal is supposed to completely change the trust's commercial status on the public record.
I mean, listen to that language. The protocol uses these powerful, almost spiritual words to describe what happens. It says the seal performs a resurrection of status. It's pretty dramatic stuff. So what exactly is being resurrected? It's the status of the trust itself.
The whole idea is that the trust steps up to the plate and takes on the commercial liability. It acts as a surety, which is basically a guarantor for a debt. And the whole point of this is to legally separate and protect the individual person from being on the hook for that debt.
And all of this links up with something called a UCC1 filing. Just think of a UCC1 as a kind of public announcement that somebody has a security interest in someone else's property. Well, according to this protocol, the seal is the thing that makes the security agreement, what it calls the spine of the whole claim, official and recognized.
And that really brings us to a final, much bigger question. After digging into all of this, it kind of makes you wonder, what truly gives any symbol its authority? I mean, whether it's a country's flag or a simple wax seal, does the power come from the law? From all of us just agreeing that it has power? Or is it just from the act of someone boldly claiming it has power? Definitely something to think about.